I knew that money could change people, but witnessing that moment firsthand was quite a mental shock. After all, the moment they found out I inherited a fortune, both my once kind ex-husband and the ex-in-laws with whom I had a moderate relationship changed. Or rather, it might be better to say they revealed their true selves. In the end, a lot happened. We divorced, and my in-laws became strangers. But I hear rumors that their household is still in a chaotic mess. Years ago, my mom's sister, my aunt, who passed away, was a typical career woman from her youth and even dabbled in investments. My mom used to say that she seemed to have considerable assets. Even so, I never cared about how much money my aunt had. I would just nod and say, "Oh really?" when it was brought up. My aunt never spent her money recklessly. She was careful, spending only what was necessary and cutting back elsewhere. For example, she cooked for herself but used ordinary supermarket ingredients, or bought only a few quality clothing items to wear for a long time, instead of buying whatever she wanted. I admired and I liked my aunt's values, but there was a strong notion back then that women who earned more than men weren't attractive. She was often looked down upon and prejudiced by relatives. Also, there was a fixed idea that a woman's happiness was in getting married and having children, so my aunt, who was neither married nor had children, was treated like an outsider. But she never let unkind words get her down. She was confident and let people talk as they liked. One day, when I was visiting my aunt, she suddenly said to me, "Hey, if I pass away, I want you to be the inheritor," while we were relaxing on the sofa having tea. It was so unexpected that I asked her what she meant, and she explained, "I'm not married and I don't have children, so no one will inherit my wealth, but I don't want my money to go to those who have looked down on me and ridiculed me. Of course, I will prepare all the necessary documents for inheritance, but I want to make you the official inheritor," she said, smiling but in a serious tone. As for me, I casually accepted, thinking it was fine since she was only in her 40s at the time and it would be 30 or 40 years before she would pass away. It felt like a distant future. And I had no real understanding of inheritance, being a high school student. Honestly, I thought what my aunt told me was a joke back then. Time passed, I got married, had children, was busy with work and parenting when my youngest child graduated and started working. I heard from Mom that Aunt's health was failing. I rushed to the hospital where Aunt was admitted, and there she was, looking lively, saying, "What? She told you I'm well?" That's such an exaggeration. I'm sorry to worry you, but it's just a checkup. Look, I'm as fit as ever. With her unchanging smile, my aunt answered like that. At that moment, I felt relieved, thinking everything was fine, but in reality, Aunt's condition was not good, and she was just pretending to be well so as not to worry me. As evidence, Aunt started going in and out of the hospital several times afterward. Every time the children and I would visit her in the hospital, and although we'd meet with Aunt, her health clearly weakened as the days went by. Her cheeks were sunken, her arms and neck had thinned, and she almost looked like skin and bones. But she never stopped smiling and acted brightly, and I thought she was truly a strong person, because that smile was the same one I knew from my childhood. I even thought a miracle might happen, but in the end, Aunt passed away. Afterward, we had a funeral with close family only, but the feeling of regret was strong. I thought I should have spent more time with her instead of using being busy as an excuse, or I should have made memories by going out together in various places. I know it's too late to say such hypothetical things after she's gone. The children were also fond of Aunt and respected her, so they were depressed that they couldn't talk to her anymore like me, and it was painful to watch. A few months after Aunt passed away, when I still couldn't sort my feelings, my husband came home from work and handed me a legal-sized envelope saying something had arrived. Wondering what it was, I checked the sender and found it was from a law firm, and I panicked a little, thinking, what is going on? I don't remember needing a lawyer. Have I been involved in some crime? I thought, and nervously opened the envelope to check inside. There I found information regarding Aunt's inheritance. At that moment, I realized that what Aunt had told me that day was serious, so I contacted the law firm to hear the details. That lawyer was an old friend of Aunt's and seemed to have been entrusted with her property and inheritance after her death. When I heard Aunt's total assets, I nearly fell over, because it was not just a few $1 million, it was over $400 million. I panicked again, and after hearing from the lawyer, I called Mom, who casually answered.
It seemed like your aunt wanted you to be the heir. She consulted me after you graduated high school, so I told her if the two of you agreed, it's fine with me.
I was shocked by this too, but since the amount was so large, I was confused about what to do with such a huge sum. But Mom said in a carefree manner,
Since your aunt made proper documents for you, you should gratefully accept it or you might be cursed.
I blurted out, Aren't you going to inherit anything, Mom?
Inheritance can be a hassle, often causing fights between family members. You probably don't know, but one of Grandma's siblings died a long time ago. It seems that person had some inheritance, but they didn't leave a will. Because of that, siblings and their children were fighting over the money, yelling every day. But your aunt left proper documents for you, right? So there's no need for me to get involved. Just be careful with your husband's parents, though,
she advised, sighing as if recalling those times. Hearing this, I said, My husband will be fine, but I never thought that Mom's warning would later become reality. A few days later, my husband seemed unusually restless. He asked me, I got some papers from the lawyer's office. Is it about an inheritance? I wondered how he knew, but since I had no reason to hide it, I honestly said, yes. His eyes sparkled and he asked, How much did you inherit? At that moment, he had this sly grin and I had an uncomfortable feeling, so I casually misled him by saying, Oh, about $10 million or so. But he must have sensed that I was lying about the amount. He continued to be persistent, asking, Isn't there really more? And you should look into it more. There might be more. I initially brushed him off, but eventually I got annoyed and snapped, I told you, it's $10 million. Why are you so persistent? He responded evasively, I don't know, it just feels off somehow. Finally, I sternly said, Let's end this conversation now. But strangely, from the next day, my husband's attitude changed and he started ignoring me. That had never happened before, and I was a bit surprised, but I was stubborn too, and we didn't speak for about 2 months. Then, suddenly, my in-laws who used to live nearby visited our home without notice. Usually, they'd call and ask if they could visit on a specific day, so their sudden appearance made me think something serious was going on. But then, my father-in-law said, We heard from our son that you inherited an estate recently, and it's over $100 million. We're thinking of remodeling our old house. I'm proud that our son married such a good person. Why don't we add a couple of rooms and live together? And next to him, my mother-in-law was nodding in agreement. I was shocked that my husband knew the real amount of my inheritance, and even more astounded that my in-laws were making remodel plans relying on that money. They kept talking about desired kitchen designs and using marble, and I finally snapped back to reality and said, I haven't heard any of this. They responded, We've already contacted an agency. And I could tell they were clearly banking on my money without a second thought. My head started to hurt. I wanted to say a lot of things, but I was afraid I'd speak out of emotion, so I asked them to leave for the day and kicked them out of the house. When I confronted my husband after returning from work that night, he tried to dodge the question at first, but I pressed him, and he finally confessed that he had snooped and found the documents related to the inheritance. By the way, I had kept those documents in the back of a drawer in my study. So he had searched through the entire room, even reaching into the back of the drawer. I was chilled to see his obsessive behavior, and when I told him, Your parents came today and said this, he responded, The money you earned is joint property, so it's mine too. It's only natural to use it for remodeling my family home. You're the one at fault for not telling me the exact amount. He continued to justify his and his parents' actions and treated me like the villain. As if that wasn't bad enough, he casually mentioned quitting his job, and when I demanded, Wait a minute, what's going on here? He had defiantly responded, You have enough money, so I don't need to work. It's a waste of time to do a job I hate just for the stress. We can live happily and stress-free with that money, and if we remodel my parents' house, it will elevate your status as my wife. It's a win-win situation. Why are you so upset about this? With a weary look on his face, I realized this guy was hopeless, so I told him, You can remodel or do whatever you like, but I won't contribute any money to it. And my husband got furious again. Oh, we already discussed this, he yelled. He continued to rant and rave, but I ignored him. The next day, my husband showed up with his parents, protesting that I had changed the terms of our agreement. So I told them, You are the ones who went ahead without talking to me. Why should I have to contribute money? It's not for the remodeling of your family home or to support your son, who quit his job without even consulting me. They railed at me with accusations like, We've always treated you well, and you gold digger. But I was disillusioned with their true nature. I told them I didn't care and to leave because we would never speak again. Then my husband asked, What do you mean by that? When I replied exactly what I said, he began to panic. You're not seriously considering divorce over this, are you? He demanded, but I simply told him that we would discuss it with our lawyers and sent the three of them away. Afterward, I packed my bags and took refuge in a hotel. My husband continued to text me, "I will never divorce you," and "I love you," but I replied, "You love my money, don't you?" and turned off my phone. I stayed in the hotel that night, and when I explained the situation to my parents the next day, they sighed and said, "We thought this might happen." When asked, "What will you do now?" I replied, "Divorce is the only option." "Fight him with everything you've got, because he won't let you go easily," my mom advised. Later, I was told there might be other issues, so it's best to investigate. I hired a detective agency, and it was revealed that my husband frequented nightclubs. This was unacceptable to me, so I hired a divorce-savvy lawyer. My husband refused to divorce, and instead demanded compensation and a share of the property. My lawyer explained that what I inherited from my family wasn't joint property and didn't qualify for property division. But my husband screamed, "That can't be true!" When the lawyer asked, "Would you give your wife the money you inherited from your family, claiming it's family money?" he fell silent. Afterward, my husband was lectured about his unreasonable behavior by the lawyer. In the end, he was nearly in tears, insisting that I pay for the remodeling, but of course that argument didn't hold water and my husband slumped in defeat. Later, I found out the remodeling paperwork had already been done, and that I'd offered to pay for it, signing a contract for the remodeling of my husband's family home in his name, and he seemed to have been very particular about it, and the total cost exceeded $10 million. So it seems he was worried that if he divorced me, he wouldn't be able to pay that money. So whether we divorced or not, he said there was no reason for me to pay. But even after that, he kept pushing, trying to negotiate, saying, "They don't want you to pay half." But when my lawyer threatened to sue him for harassment, he finally gave up. But my in-laws didn't seem to give up, and they attacked the family home. Finally, they raised a hand against my father and destroyed the potted plants outside before fleeing, so we reported it. Afterward, they even lashed out at the police, who came to ask about the situation and were taken away. Of course, the whole neighborhood heard about this, and even after being released, the rumors persisted. Because I casually mentioned it to some gossip-loving neighbors, the greedy nature of my husband's family became widely known. All this led to divorce finally happening, with my ex-husband giving in. But even after that, I kept receiving messages saying, "I still love you. I want to start over." So I asked my lawyer to issue a restraining order, but that doesn't last a lifetime, only having effect for up to 6 months, and it doesn't seem like he's the type to comply with it, so it's scary to think that he might get angry and stab me or something. So I decided to move with my parents. I felt sorry for my parents, who had to leave the place they were used to because of me, but given the circumstances and with the world being a dangerous place, it had to be done. Afterward, we moved almost like running away, and once things settled down, I informed the children. Of course, they were surprised, but everyone sympathized, saying it couldn't be helped. After that, life went on without any particular problems, but eventually my bad feeling came true. My ex-husband ignored the restraining order and was seen lurking around my former family home, and a passing police officer found it suspicious and stopped and questioned him. That's when a small knife was found in his pocket, and he was arrested. When asked, he said, "I wanted to talk to my ex-wife." And when I heard that from the lawyer who helped me during the divorce, it gave me the chills. If I had been optimistic and stayed at my parents' house, even after issuing the restraining order, in the end, since there were no injuries, it seems my ex-husband was released early, but I became too afraid to even approach where my old family home used to be. Since then, I didn't know what happened to my ex-husband for a while, but a friend living near his family home told me that they can hear yelling almost every day from his remodeled house. It's mostly about money. "You're the one on the paperwork, so you pay." Or, "It's our parents' house, so they should pay." They apparently hear quite clearly. Moreover, despite having remodeled, there are sounds of something breaking, and sometimes it's so bad that the police have to come and warn them. Occasionally, they also hear things like, "If only we hadn't let that wife go, we'd be living well now," or "It's your fault for getting a divorce," and so on. Before inheriting the estate, the relationship was decent, and the parent-child bond between my ex-husband and his family was good, but who would have thought that just money could mess everything up so much? It's exactly as Mom warned, and I realized anew how scary money can be. I also hear my ex-father-in-law yelling, "Find a job already," and my ex-husband arguing back, "Shut up already." So it seems he's still unemployed. Well, considering his age, finding a new job must be difficult. Also, since I explained everything, the neighbors know about the divorce mess and no one wants to get close to the ex-husband's family. They're afraid of being asked for money and are keeping their distance. Some even say that getting close to that house will make your fortune run away, as if the house is treated like a temple for cutting ties. I chuckled a little when I heard that. On the other hand, I've rented a slightly larger place and I'm living with my parents, just the three of us. My parents say, "Take care of yourself first, we're fine," but I have no intention of remarrying, so I plan to live with them. After all, if the other party found out about the inheritance, they might change, like my ex-husband. And since I never really had expensive hobbies or spent much money, I plan to continue living as I did before. So, I intend to use the money if my parents or I need to enter a facility when we get older or for celebrations like my children's weddings or births. Certainly, the amount of money isn't something that would disappear with trivial expenses, but since it's the money my beloved aunt left for me, I wanted to use it in the same way she would have. So, recently, I started working part-time and began studying investment and money management, but it's pretty challenging, and I realized once again how incredible my aunt was to have been doing this for so many years. We are living a relatively satisfying life now, but the situation with my ex-husband and his family, which we occasionally hear about, continues to be dreadful. However, since we're divorced and they're now strangers to us, we feel it's entirely their problem and they should resolve it without involving others.